Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a wonderful evening, a fireside chat with Peter Kyle and other selected guests. So we're very much looking forward to this evening, and a little bit of housekeeping first of all. You've all seen the Wi-Fi connection. Hopefully you've all been managed to connect, yeah? Good. And tonight we want this to be really interactive, so we've lined up a Mentimeter presentation for you. So if you want to scan the QR code and you'll find yourselves on Mentimeter, and then you can give me a heart or a thumbs up to make sure you've all connected. That would be wonderful. Oh, plenty of hearts and thumbs ups coming. Good, 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 good. The instructions will be on some of the other slides as well, so you'll be able to connect as you go. Oh. So tonight, close up and personal, all about Brighton. And one of our work streams, as you know, is Brighton and Beyond, which is hosted by Martin Howe and Rose Ty, standing over there as bouncers on the door this evening. They represent this stream of our activities under Brighton AI. I think it's highly appropriate that Brighton and Beyond, all about Brighton. We have Peter Kyle tonight, MP for Hove and Port Slade, so he's in his home constituency, and we should have a marvellous event with him tonight. Now, of course, these two guys are supported by Thule. Where are you, Thule? Somewhere around? No, she must be outside on bouncing duty. Standing up for Mary Kemp and our own Graeme Cox, who I know is outside. Oh, no, he's inside now. There's Graeme. And beloved BC and myself representing ethics and governance. So that is your host for this evening. Now, I want to take this opportunity to welcome Thule. Here's Thule. Here she is. Wave to everybody. Thule is our new ethics and governance co-lead, because sadly, we've got to say goodbye to BC. BC, big wave for the audience. She's been our co-lead for well over a year, done a fantastic job, but she's now moved to London, outside of the city, making it incredibly difficult for her to support Brighton AI by coming to face-to-face events. But we know BC will still support us in every way possible. But we welcome Thule. Thule, Hyper-Agility co-founder, and also an ethics expert. Fantastic. More from Thule later. So just want to remind everybody about the mission of Brighton AI. And essentially, it's to educate, to inspire, and to inform. And what we try and do is answer three questions concerning AI. First of all, what the hell is it? Because there's a lot of confusion around AI at the moment as to what it really means. There's an awful lot of snake oil salespeople out there jumping on the AI bandwagon. And that's one of the reasons why we use our dear Graeme to provide an update on the state of the AI market from time to time, which is always done with Graeme's particular style, and has proved to be immensely valuable. The second thing we try and do is get people to understand what it means to them. What does AI mean? It's happening really fast. It's overwhelming in certain circumstances. What does it mean? And thirdly, what do we need to do right now? And those are the questions that we're looking to answer. Now, we also want to take this opportunity to say a really big thank you for Silicon Brighton. And we have the two founders here today, Grace Pryor and the wonderful Steve Rackley, who's out on the door. I've always wanted to say that. Steve's out on the door. Silicon Brighton, amazing organization. There are 40 plus meetups now sitting under the Silicon Brighton banner. It's really quite extraordinary. They run about 100 events a year. We've got 10,000 advocates, and they represent about 12,000 employed people under 100 plus sponsors. So it's a remarkable organization. And to be frank, Brighton AI would not exist without the support of Silicon Brighton. And we regard their contributions to our cause as being magnificent. And we love collaborating with the guys at Silicon Brighton. Outstanding job. Now, a big event for Silicon Brighton this year is Evolve. And it's the first time out, I believe, for the Evolve exhibition. And Grace, would you like to say a couple of words about Evolve? Just 30 seconds, 2 minutes. Or 1 minute, or half an hour. There we go.
What can I tell you in 30 seconds? It's going to be our flagship event, the meetup of all meetups. It's going to be a tech conference, but expect more than just a tech conference. It's going to be a truly extraordinary day of tech innovation and community. Happening on Friday, the 4th of July, we have booked out Brighton Dome, so a really iconic venue. We've got about 1,000, capacity for about 1,000 people to attend. There are still tickets selling, so pop the QR code into your phone now and do get a ticket. There'll be 3 stages of content for everyone from tech leaders through to product owners, through to everything in between. Space for 50 exhibitors, lots of sponsors, workshops, human libraries, and many other different bits of interactive stuff and other surprises, some of which is planned and some of which are little dreams and seeds of our thoughts at the moment, but it's all sort of growing. So yes, if you would like to come, get involved, contribute in any way, get in touch with me, and we can co-curate something together. Thank you.
Thanks. So our sponsors tonight are Seiko, Mortgages and Insurance. They very kindly have donated, put money behind the bar and contributed to the Brighton AI cause, which is magnificent. Martin, do we have anyone from Seiko here tonight? Do we know? So sponsors in absentia, which is fine. But we're very grateful to Seiko for doing what they've done. We also are going to be welcoming shortly, I believe, she's not arrived yet, Jess Gibbons, who is the Chief Executive of Brighton Hove County Council. She's been in post for just over a year now, and she's going to come and join us tonight for the event. And we can ask her about potholes and bins and electric scooters knocking you off the pavement without registration plates and all the other wonderful stuff that annoys the hell out of us. So we're looking forward to seeing Jess later on. So we're now waiting for our principal guests to arrive, Jess and Peter Kyle. So this is the moment where we just have to make it up as we go along, which could get quite interesting. So before our guests arrive, does anybody have a particular question that they would like to field with Peter that they've not yet expressed on their questionnaire form?
How's Peter going to? How's Peter going to help the AI community within Brighton and Hove to develop to its full potential, and to really make this the #1 city for technology and AI?
Okay, great question. So we'll have that in front of Peter or Jess later on. Anyone else have a question they'd like to field tonight?
Short walk.
Short walk.
Yes, so my question would probably be whether or not there's been any thought about what can be done to use or integration of technology and AI into regenerative agriculture, regenerative farming and the agriculture sector. Just if there's any thoughts on that and where we're sort of heading.
Fantastic. You've just become my favorite person. One thing I want to do when I retire from tech is get a regenerative agriculture. So yes, there you go.
Well, I have a meta question, which is how the questions are going to be asked. Are you going to read them out from the things we submitted, or are you going to call our names and we ask our questions? Which one is it, please?
Sure. The format of the evening is there's been many questions, more than we can cover in an hour and a half, or even a week and a half, I imagine. So there's been many questions come through. We've kind of selected them across the 3 streams and interspersed them with other questions we've had pre-prepared. So we will be presenting the questions to Peter, just to make sure we make best use of the time. We will have access to Mentimeter towards the end of the time we have, where you'll be able to present questions via the app that we'll see up here, and Peter and Matt can select from those.
Okay. So what I think we'll do, whilst we've got 5 or so minutes, I think there's another question over there, Martin. Sorry.
Yep. So here we go.
I didn't see your hands. My apologies. Need AI.
So a question on just slightly beyond AI. If the government wants to be leading in AI in the world, a lot of that talent doesn't necessarily come from the UK. We have a huge international community in science. The former government decided to have human worth based on your income, and a lot of international students, after finishing their degrees and PhDs, cannot stay around because they can't get the visa requirements. And this seems to be a policy that the Labour government hasn't gone back on. So I'd be curious what the government has plans for in terms of improving that international community.
An excellent question. Very good.
I've written that one down. Thank you. One more.
Yeah, I think my question is all around mental health as well. Over the last few years, it's become apparent that digital consumer experiences have engineered more on the compulsion, and especially over the last year with smartphone-free childhood becoming a rising kind of agenda for people and parents. I would like to see how the government wants to focus on designing technologies, in particular around AI innovation, to free us from that, to allow us to actually spend more time with people and move away from potentially those technologies, to allow us to kind of move away from that idea that technology is constantly needing us.
Okay, excellent. So you don't think for a moment AI is removing our ability to make our own decisions, do you? Okay, thank you very much indeed. So we're still waiting for our guests to arrive. So what I'm going to do, and I'm making this up as I go along, so you'll have to forgive me. Take a look at this and vote. So if you look at your Mentimeter now, you'll see that you can vote on those issues. And all you do is click on the one you want to be first and drag it into the top box and so on and so on. You guys will figure it all out. And this is relevant to the city. Where do you feel we're going to see most growth? Look at that. Isn't that exciting? It's worth coming just for that. As in growth as a result, direct result of AI. Well, hopefully the two sit tightly together. Let's talk about revenue. Yeah. It's a very interesting question for Brighton, because in Brighton, very typically, we're great with startups, but we don't scale. Yeah. And there has to be a reason for that we're trying to discover. Hi, Alex. Very, very interesting. So we're seeing a big growth, we think, in technology services, technology revenues all across the board. So let's look at this one. What are our biggest challenges? Is it privacy? Is it safety? Is it inclusivity? Accessibility, something that most software companies tend to put latest on their agenda. Where do we think we sit with those issues? That's quite evenly balanced. If someone who said privacy is number one, would you like to tell us what your concern is around privacy? Can you define it? Can you share it with the rest of the audience? Someone voted privacy number one. Come on, be brave, step forward. There we go.
I mentioned privacy because it seems that for a lot of these models to get better, they require data, and often that data is human data. And also lots of the companies who are building the main models are all companies who love to acquire vast amounts of people's data without their explicit knowledge. So it's a worry about how to engage with it and how to use it when we know that it has been built on practices that we ourselves might not implement, but it's been built on that itself.
Very good. Thank you. This gentleman over here.
I'll also ask the question I was going to ask earlier as well, if that's all right, which is around how much progress is being made by his government colleagues on preparation for younger people for the future to have the skills that they need to, I'm going to segue onto a future where AI is both inclusive and accessible. And just looking at this list, my interpretation would be because the first two are big challenges, that will have a great knock-on effect on the third and fourth also being a great challenge.
Yeah, it's a very good point. And there's no doubt about it. In the wave we're currently swimming in, there will be massive displacement of jobs. And arming young people to go into this new world of AI-driven occupation of jobs and skill sets, etc., is an absolute paramount importance. And I'm slightly concerned, are the universities keeping pace necessarily with what we need to deliver in terms of intellectual material and experience? So.
Not just universities, I think that's a mistake straight away as early as possible. Universities way too late. You've got people in the Gulf making it mandatory at much younger levels.
Yeah. Well, the glorious thing is, of course, the young use AI without even thinking about it on their smartphones. They're better than we are at it. So, interesting point. This is a very important question for us. On a scale of 1 to 10, do you feel that Brighton AI is giving you a voice, an opportunity to contribute to the narrative, to the debate, to the discussions that are going on? Our concern, obviously, that if the narrative is controlled by big tech, it will go in a particular direction. And we feel very strongly that for ethical AI and safe implementation of AI systems, we do need everyone participating in the debate and in the narrative. Not bad. I like those scores, Martin. What do you think?
Yeah, very happy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the last one, which you can't answer yet because we haven't finished the event. So you can only give us some insight at the end of the event. Can you tell I'm padding somewhat whilst waiting for our guests to arrive?
I do know that they are literally around the corner wrapping up a meeting. That's the last thing I heard. You've seen that there's some international news on the press today. Maybe they're dealing with the updates from that. So we're really on a live situation, but I'm assured that they were on their way. So they should be here shortly.
Very good. I've run out of padding now, so we just literally have to make it up as we go along. Oh, we could do charades, couldn't we? Yeah. We have a thought. We have a question from a member of the audience.
Please let me hand the microphone. No, don't. It doesn't come across on the cameras. We are going live.
In your list of the 4 things with safety and everything, I thought maybe accuracy. There is an assumption it's going to be correct, but there's an awful lot on the internet that's nonsense. And so people
No, you're kidding, really?
People shouldn't assume it's going to be accurate. That's the thing. And how do you safeguard against that?
So that's a very interesting question, because if you look at ChatGPT, I personally think that it's been designed to give you an answer but look like it's thinking. So it has that sort of ticker tape effect of, what could the answer be? Rather than just presenting it instantly like you get on a web search. And I think that's all part of convincing you subliminally that the answer is correct. Yeah. And it's a very easy trap to fall into. And I think
so do you know if anyone's doing work on that then?
Yeah, from what I've seen, and my experience is limited to a particular sector, there is a lot of work going into, if you like, validity of information that's being presented. Yeah. And for example, we as a company, when we use ChatGPT, one of the prompts, part of the prompts we always put in is, if you don't know the answer, don't make it up. Yeah, because chat will do that under certain circumstances. Excuse me. Imminent? Martin? You're very welcome. So we had all these layers of padding built in case the guys were late. And we've kind of used them all up now.
Yeah, I just thought I'd add my question in case it wasn't on the form. But one thing that I wanted to talk about today was, how do we avoid like brain drain? So it seems that lots of companies, when they get big or successful, there could be a tendency to, move out of Brighton. and then it's move out of, and then when they get bigger, it's like, okay, move out of England, the UK, and just be based in the US. So I guess, is that something we want to be concerned about? And if so, how do we avoid it so that we can actually have these hubs of excellence that keep growing rather than just leave?
Yeah, and I think it's an excellent concern, and that is part of the mission of Brighton AI, is to discover exactly what we do need to do as a city, because it's really important. If we lose all our talent, what will we become? We predicted that growth in technology would be our #1 growth area for revenue. Well, it's not going to be if there's no talent in the city. I think that's pretty fair to say. Okay. Graeme, you wanted to say a few words, did you? That would be
helpful.
excellent.
Yeah, thank you. We do have some fallback fill-ins and
Hey everybody.
Graeme Cox.
So this is not planned and completely impromptu. You're here to listen to Peter and get his views on how he is driving policy from the government level. But since he is obviously a little bit late dealing with probably Trump and the treaty that evidently has the tariff treaty that has evidently been struck today, which is going to have some kind of impact on AI, I'll fill in just for a couple of minutes, just from my point of view. So I run an AI consultancy business called Atacop, based out of Brighton. My data scientists and AI engineers are spread over Europe, and I see roughly one mid-sized company a week to help them with understanding where they are with the AI strategy and delivery. So just some thoughts on where I see practically the AI market in these companies. These are companies that are the smallest, their turnover about 10, 15 million, the largest turnover about 300 million. They tend to be owned by private equity companies because that's the way that we work. But they're a pretty broad swathe of technology businesses and technology-enabled businesses. So first thing I always surprises me when I go in is that the vast majority of people in these organizations aren't actually using AI tools on a day-to-day basis. Indeed, most of these organizations, whilst I've been brought in either by the private equity company or by the CEO of the business, most of these organizations don't have a coherent AI strategy or a policy for what they should and shouldn't do inside the organization. They know they want to use these tools. There is a drive to think this could make my business better, but they're not that far ahead. And I don't know about you guys, but I live in a little bit of an AI bubble where I kind of think that everybody's using AI for everything all day, every day, because that's just what I do. You know, that's the world that I live in. Actually, that's not true. On the technology levels, we're obsessed about talking about agentic AI solutions, where we've got these semi-autonomous agents doing their own thing and solving problems inside businesses, running processes and making things happen. Actually, on the front line, it's still about, should I turn on Microsoft Copilot and give people the ability to ask questions over their Excel spreadsheets, or should I block use of ChatGPT because my data's going to the States, or can this actually deliver any kind of value for my business? The world itself, I see at the front line, is maybe not quite as far ahead as if you're involved in AI in any depth, we tend to think it is. These basics are still a problem. And the very basic part of that is, will this actually deliver value for my business? We can think of that on a personal level as well, in that, again, I'm sure we're all at different levels in the way that we use AI tools, but I suspect that everybody here, just by nature of being here in the first place, is pretty interested in AI in one way or another. I use AI tools for pretty much everything. It helps me organize my brain, my to-do list. It helps me write. It helps me create multimedia presentations. It helps me organize my team. It helps my project planning function. It gives me my meeting minutes and transcriptions that enable me to remember what the hell it was I actually agreed to do. It's like across the board, everything. But to get to that point, I've had to invest quite a bit of time in learning these tools and becoming skilled with them. And the average person in a business is really often has no connection with these tools whatsoever. So there's a long way to go from, in practical terms, to become a country that is skilled and lost the word I'm looking for, that is slick and expert in using AI tools. I see that we're still really just at the very start of any kind of transformation in business, rather than thinking that, oh my God, I'm going to get left behind if we're not doing this stuff. The things that I think make a really big difference at an organizational level in terms of AI maturity that allow businesses to really move forward are around encouraging individual tool use, because I strongly believe that we can all be vastly more efficient, vastly more effective if we make good use of AI tooling, knowing how to use it, with particular reference to your point about the fact that AI doesn't always get it right. It's very, very important to understand where you have to question and where you don't. But having those skills is the starting point to building organizational capabilities and bigger sets of workflow that can actually make a difference in organization. I strongly see now, and again, I live in a bubble, so I'm a little bit biased, but one of the things that I ask for when I'm interviewing people is to understand how they use AI in the work that they do. One of the types of people I employ are software developers, when they're AI engineers first and foremost, but their output is in software. And we always have a technical interview. And in that technical interview, we give them a problem. We give them several days to come up with a solution to that problem. And then we use their code and their solution to talk through their technical skills, understanding how they did it. A year ago, we really struggled with this, thinking, well, how can we do that when these guys are presumably going to just be using AI to write the code for them? Now I realize that actually, if it turns out that they haven't used AI to help them write the code, then I'm not interested in them in the first place. I actually now have reduced the number of software developers in my company by a factor of 50% in order to take better advantage of efficient use of coding tools in the business. Using AI tools to write code still requires skill. It requires understanding. It requires structure more than anything else, just like everything else with AI. It requires you to know what you want the output to be before you can get AI to produce it for you. And that, I think, is the key to use of all generative AI tools. It's understanding what it is you're trying to achieve in a really clear and concise way before you start engaging with the tool set. When you go in a kind of vague, oh, I want it to be all lovely, and I want an app that sorts out my to-do list. That's not a requirement. If you gave that to a human, they would go off in one of about 10 different directions. You give it to an AI, you've got the same problem. So whether you are using an AI tool to ask for a report development or to summarize a conversation or anything else, or whether you're using it to write code or create images, understanding how to structure your prompt and structure your thinking before you go into that is the skill that we really need, and that we really need to develop to become super users of AI. That is what I do inside my business. That is what I encourage and train people in my customers' businesses to do. And that is the starting point to building systems, workflows, and organizational processes that rely on AI. So one other thing that I was just thinking about this afternoon, that what I see in business at the moment. So my first point there was supposed to be, don't worry, the world isn't as far on as you think it is. So sometimes we think we're going to get left behind. Actually, when you get into mid-sized to enterprise scale businesses, they're just starting with this stuff. When the second thing in that is that we see increasingly that the actual models that you use, whether that be an OpenAI based model, a Google Gemini based model, an Anthropic Claude model, or Perplexity or anything else, they're increasingly commoditized. It actually doesn't matter that much. And in fact, I would strongly encourage everybody to ensure that you don't have any deep reliance on any one particular model set, because they do work a little bit differently. They require different prompts and different inputs to get the best out of them, but they're leapfrogging each other so quickly that in next week, there'll be some capability that comes out with a different model that is just so much easier to use. You don't have to spend a lot of money on these tools anymore. There was this brief moment, I don't know if anybody got caught by this. I did, I felt I had to try it. OpenAI came out with a $200 a month subscription for deep research. And I have to say, OpenAI's GPT deep research capability is pretty fantastic. But now Anthropic Claude and Google Gemini both have their deep research capabilities, and actually they have leapfrogged over OpenAI, and they don't cost even a fraction of that to use. If you're not familiar with deep research, it's the ability to literally do that really deep analysis of a problem. So it'll go through a lot of internet data, come up with a lot of report information. Might take 10, 12 minutes to do so, but it comes up with a really detailed analysis of what you've got. It's an incredible tool. If you haven't tried it, strongly recommend you do so. My recommendation for today would be go to gemini.google.com and try its deep research capability. You will get something back you'll be amazed by if you've never seen it before. So yeah, so don't rely on the tools. And yeah, beyond that, I have a tendency to disappear into deep tech, which I don't want to do this evening. There is a whole bunch of libraries and tooling that is building up. The whole ecosystem around these models is becoming more and more interesting, and there's a huge amount of economic opportunity around the applications that can be built around these models. I'm sure a whole load of you are invested in looking and thinking about that. And it remains the case that both short and long-term opportunities to build some things that are really amazing exist around the tooling that is capable there, and particularly in the agentic space, where if you are involved in AI, although I say that is very much the cutting edge, that is where I'd recommend that you do some playing to understand that, and particularly with MCP, which is that kind of, as it tends to get called, the USB-C of AI, allowing you to plug directly into SaaS and other applications to connect directly between model conversations and stores of information. Absolutely phenomenal. Yes, and now I'm filling. So
I think it's huge round of applause.
I'll stop there. Thank you very much. That was 5 minutes, but you know.
that was extremely well done. Right, let's have a bit of intellectual lottery here, shall we? Who has got a definition of intelligence they'd like to share? I want someone to define it. Go. No, I want a definition of intelligence. Who's got one? Where's our mic? Who's got the mic? Graeme's got.
What do you want, Mike?
This lady here and this lady here. Sana. Definition of intelligence.
And have access to achieve what you want to achieve.
Oh, what do we think? Hands up if we think that's a good one. Hands up if we think it's not quite there. Hands up if we're not sure. Okay, this gentleman here. So your definition of art. And that was off the top of your head. Fantastic. Yes. Intelligence.
I want to go back to the question of intelligence. So I teach about intelligence in animals and machines at Sussex. And with respect, I think it's a great idea for human intelligence, but we need to think about all animal intelligence. So I study insects. I think there is a level of intelligence. There is no good definition of intelligence that applies across animals And I think we should try and get away from definitions and think about the behavior that animals generate and what that does.
Okay, very, very good. Here we are.
To know thyself.
Oh, philosophical.
Just wondered if I just looked up on ChatGPT as it's relevant. The ability to learn, understand, and apply knowledge and skills to solve problems, adapt to new solutions, and think abstractly. It goes on, it waffles a bit, but that's the.
Okay, so anyone else with a good definition? We have one up, a volunteer at the back here.
Is intelligence how much knowledge you've got? And you use that. Which one is it? So like artificial intelligence is focused on a lot of data, a lot of knowledge, and it's got an application across it that allows it to give you a purpose task. But I want to go to the Graeme was saying about we work mostly in videos all the time. Somebody come in and say, I'm looking something here for video. We didn't make anything. We didn't know what he wanted to do. I think that's how we will approach. It's like, where's that kind of artistic intelligence or emotional intelligence or usage intelligence, or, you know, in this case, I think intelligence in AI is how much do we know it can do and how much can we make use of it by programming it correctly. And I think that's Graeme's point that he was making about that's probably our intelligence. That's our intelligence when we come to facing AI, is that how much do we know it can do? It's a power tool. You know, what's its depth, what's its breadth, and what it can do.
Thank you for sharing. So do we think the expression artificial intelligence is a good one? Do we think it describes what we're dealing with here?
The current talking is artificial general intelligence, which is the target. The target that we're aiming for is artificial general intelligence, which is generally considered to be coming within the next 5 to 10 years. I work for Google, and Demis Hassabis, one of my colleagues, is, you know, one of the fathers of this thing. You know, they won the Nobel Prize last year for protein molecule folding. Basically, AI won the Nobel Prize. But anyway, he says that within the next 5 years or so, he anticipates artificial general intelligence, which basically means something not far off human, or you know, approaching what a person can do.
Yeah. It's always an interesting debate, isn't it? Because when you look around at what people generally do, I don't think we exhibit a lot of intelligence most of the time. So modeling synthetic capability on human intelligence, is that a good idea necessarily? Yes.
I think that was what I was actually going to go on to say, really, is that we talk a lot about intelligence as if the goal is intelligence, but, you know, is that really the goal? When you think about humans, we're more than just intelligence.
Yes, good point. A very good
about
point.
compassion.
I'm going to jump in with a little update. So I've been texting Jess, Gibbons' PA, while we've been waiting. They are definitely on their way. ETA about 10 minutes. However, Jacob Allen, are you with us?
Yes.
Here? You've been volunteered, young man.
Come and join us on the sofa.
So, Jacob, come and
Ladies
sit
and
up here
gentlemen.
with us. Thank you. No pressure. Yeah, I would. Good career move. What on earth could go wrong? Rose.
Someone's getting a pay cut for this.
Yes, Jess. So would you mind? Rose had a few questions she was going to pose to Jess in the context of the council's context and current state of mind regarding AI. You may or may not know the answer to some of these questions. Be very much forgiven if you don't, but it would be interesting to, yes, absolutely, we're about to do that. So Jacob, you are, as I understand, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, so my name's Jacob. I'm a Labour councillor. I'm the Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care, Public Health and Service Transformation. And within that, I am responsible for IT&D within Brighton Hove City Council.
Thank you. Let's give you should be about 5 or 10 minutes, no longer, I'm told.
Fill 5 minutes.
Yeah, thank you.
We all on? We good? Excellent. Lovely. So let's start with an easy one. So what excites you most when we think about what technology and data broadly could do in terms of driving impact locally for our region?
Yeah, so local government is under extreme financial pressure. The budget we passed in February was one of the hardest we've ever had to pass. Millions and millions in savings we've had to find from every directorate. And so what I want to see from technology, where Brighton and Hove City Council is behind the curve compared to many other local authorities, is how we can really address the areas that are putting extreme pressure on cost. The one that immediately springs to mind is our backlog of assessments for social care. They currently take up significant amount of staffing and manpower to get through a backlog that formed. Other areas, things as simple as when bin lorries have missed certain areas of the round and we have to put up a kind of mop-up crew. Can AI help map a route for that team to avoid significant traffic and roadworks and things like that, to map out the smoothest route rather than having to get clogged up somewhere in the city whereas there could be an easier way round? I mean, it's simple things like this that are currently just out of reach, it feels to me. But the thing that makes me so hesitant, and the reason why I'm here tonight really to listen to so many experts in the room, including Peter, is I'm scared of the novelty of a lot of it. And because I'm responsible for allocating taxpayer money, I'm really cautious and a bit nervous about ploughing taxpayer money into things that might be a novelty.
Yeah, well, I think that's reflected across sort of corporate organisations as well. I guess the burning question for a lot of people in this room then, we've got a really vast variety of professionals, technical, non-technical. We've got people from academia, we've got some students in here. How can we help? Like, how could this community get involved and help with some of those challenges?
Well, it's definitely educating politicians like me who are nervous and kind of see this as a kind of alien technology. I mean, I use ChatGPT for very simple things, including looking over my speeches, but things like going through social care assessments where, this is depending on what kind of care people get to live a good quality of life. That's really, really serious. And it's not something I would trust ChatGPT to go through, given all the mistakes another attendee here mentioned. So it's about the confidence in the people that are making the decisions like me. And I'm sure Peter, when he arrives, will talk about some of the discussions he's had with industry leaders. But it's also about people at all levels, including especially local government, being able to have that confidence.
Awesome. And then I wonder if you could, so there's some big changes that are going to be happening shortly with devolution. I wonder if you could just explain to folks what devolution is and why it matters. Why should we care?
Yeah, so we are one of the most centralised countries in Europe. Most of our the decisions made by the states happen in Whitehall. It's the government's perspective that more decisions need to be made in the regions where they're impacted. We feel that the devolution deals that have already gone through in Greater London, in Greater Manchester with Andy Burnham, in Tees Valley, in the West Midlands, have been really successful. And so we'd like to see that replicated throughout the country. We're very lucky here in Sussex. We've been put on the fast track to get a mayor in 2026. And that means we'll be making more decisions locally on things like integrated transport, strategic housing delivery, skills and retraining for people that are currently economically inactive. So there's a lot of scope to do things for the county. I think Sussex is it's not living up to its potential right now. And so I'm really hopeful that a forward-thinking, visionary mayor, when we get one, will be really good for our region.
Excellent. And what do these devolution deals mean in terms of the opportunity for communities like this?
When you say communities like this, you might need to expand on that.
Oh, well, the people in the room are sort of running businesses and involved in innovation, either within their businesses or sort of growing the technology sector. So what sort of opportunities do we expect might come through what's in the terms of these devolution deals?
Yeah, so I think in things like strategic transport, so for example, buses in Worthing, in Brighton and in East Sussex are all different, all segmented. If you bring that all together, like has happened in London with TfL, like has happened in Greater Manchester with the B network, there's a lot of scope for doing some really innovative thinking and really innovative work in delivering better transport for communities. In housing delivery, there's a lot of scope for thinking really forward thinking about what are the homes for the future, how can we use things like data to really plan for the communities that are coming through. Certainly in Brighton and Hove, we have a falling birth rate. It's falling 3 times quicker than the national average. It's a really significant problem. How can we use strategic housing delivery to really address those kind of problems? And on things like skills, Tees Valley have been really pioneering in their work with their mayoral system in retraining and doing lots of skills work. I mean, it's the post-industrial northeast. It's kind of got that stereotype of, you know, closed down factories and mines and things. So they've done a lot of work with skills. A lot of that should be in the technology sector and addressing the 4 areas that we voted on earlier. I think technology came out #1. So yeah, lots of scope for doing some really interesting things that we don't have the capacity to do right now.
Excellent. So we've heard a lot about the challenges with local authorities across the country, actually. What is it, though, thinking positively, what are the sort of unique attributes of this region that excite you as we think about what technology and innovation can do? What is it that's unique about Sussex?
That's a very good question.
Maybe one we could put out to the
Yeah,
audience.
yeah, that'd be very interesting for me to listen to. It's a really good question. So I've stood for 3 local authorities. I stood for Guildford Borough, Surrey County and Brighton and Hove, and I think it was 3rd time lucky. I'm really proud to be a councillor in this city and to be doing work for the people of this city where I was born and raised. It's quite rare I think only 1/3 of the councillors in Brighton and Hove were actually born and bred Brightonians or Haverians. So I'm really proud of our city. I think there's everywhere has opportunities. Certainly London has the city, Manchester has a very, what would you say, thriving kind of cultural scene that I don't think we've really tapped into. And then we haven't really tapped into things like light industry in Brighton and Hove. That's kind of outside. So there's a question about whether we can bring data and technology improvements to really bring benefits for employment. I'd really like to see that. But again, it's about having that confidence to dive in head first. As I can't remember his name, he's gone. It's absolutely true that Brighton and Hove is brilliant for startups, and then they kind of stall, and there's not a lot of growth. And it's something we've reflected on in our economic strategy, and that is something we really need to look into.
Yeah, and that does feel like one area where devolution could be quite interesting, bringing together the combined authority, because you've got such a different industrial sectors when you think about East Sussex and West Sussex and Brighton and Hove, and surely there's some strength in that diversity.
Yeah, absolutely. So alongside devolution, there is local government reorganisation. The government have said that unitary authority councils should be up to 500,000 people and at a minimum 300,000 people. We are currently at 280,000 people, so we need to grow and expand somewhere. So we'll see if that goes westwards and takes in things like Shoreham Airport, Brighton City Airport, I mean, or goes eastwards and takes in things like Newhaven Port. So yeah, there's lots of interesting opportunities on the horizon for Brighton and Hove.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for stepping in. I saw Peter being whisked through to the back, so I'm assuming he's
eating something.
Baked up at the moment. And Jess, that's all right. Yeah. So, yeah, well, Jess, is there anything you'd like to add, please? Do you feel free to come in? Yeah.
So sincere apologies for being late, and lovely to meet you all. I'm Jess Gibbons, Chief Executive at the City Council, where I've been for about a year. I think you were talking about devolution, opportunity, AI, technology, and we are, I think, in the City Council, very excited about the opportunities around Sussex and Brighton becoming a mayoral combined authority. We also recently submitted a bid for an AI growth zone. There's lots of opportunities that we're seeing. And I think in the council itself, we are trying to experiment with some AI and how we can do things. We are by no means leading the way in that space, but we want to test and learn. We want to try it, and we'd love to take that into the wider Sussex. The city is so creative, isn't it? And we've got so many digital startups, as you were saying, and you're absolutely right. How do we get that growth to happen? But I think if we can take what we've got from the city out into Sussex to use the opportunities that places like Crawley, let Mid Sussex have in their business zones, in their spaces and their opportunities, and really join that up, there's a really great, I feel very optimistic for economic growth for the region. The other bit I'd like to say that I was reflecting on after we talked is I think there's also a real opportunity for us as a city to be a leader in the ethics, the morality of AI. How can we do AI when people say to me, oh, but the carbon footprint and how do we get the ethics right? Let's lead in that space. Let's be we're talking about a new leisure centre, aren't we? On the front here, King Alfred, thank you. Where we want to be able to use the energy and the heat for a data centre to heat the swimming pool. Now, I know that's not new. I know that's happening elsewhere. But how can we become the city and the hub is Sussex that is really central to all of that? So there's so much opportunity, but and so I'm excited about it, that we need to all grasp. But I'm really conscious you don't really want to hear from me. You want to hear from Peter. He's far more important. And I want to hear what he's got to say as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Shall we get a little up?
I think a big round of applause for Jess and Jacob.
Yeah.
Now we welcome our main guest for this evening, Peter Carl, Secretary of State for Science, Innovation and Technology, but representing Hove and Portslade in his own constituency. Thank you very much. All right, how are you?
Oh, nice and comfy.
Peter Carl's in the house, everybody.
This is the most comfy seat I've sat on all day.
Thank you so much for making time to come and join us. And I know you've got to rush off for yet another appointment today. So busy man, busy day, but thank you for making time. I think we're going to jump straight into questions that we've put together without further ado.
Questions from people here?
Yes, we've got a mix. The audience have pre-asked questions via an online process. We might have time for a few kind of live questions. We'll see how that goes. And we've tried to blend across three sections. Rose and I represent Brighton and Beyond, which is about AI in the community. We have a section on commercialisation and innovation, and then a final section on ethics and governance. So a bit of a spread. Some questions are easy, some we'll see.
I think I'll be the judge of that.
Good. Okay. Here's a good one that we selected from Dan Warman, who does a fantastic job in the community providing education services for people coming back to work and people entering work. And his question is this: our skills system is set up for an age before AI, with skills being taught in schools and colleges for jobs that may not exist in a few years' time. A number of local schools have banned AI tools in the school. So how can schools, colleges and universities make sure our young people are equipped to use AI in the workplace as it becomes ubiquitous and an essential part of everyone's working life?
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for having me. I'm sorry if I was a little bit late. I mean, so this is one of those foundational questions, because we can't harness the opportunities and the power of AI unless we have the digital infrastructure in place, the physical digital infrastructure in place, and we have the human skills to capitalize on it, and we have the data that AI relies on to produce the kind of quality analysis and outputs that we need from it. And all three of those areas are things that I'm very exercised about. On skills, because we've been out of office for 14 years and coming in, we have in key areas this great opportunity. And because Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, started by creating Skills England, we have this great opportunity with a new institution that's looking at skills in a new way, coupled with a comprehensive rethink of the national curriculum for the first time in, the biggest rethink for a generation, really, for 30 years almost. So my department, the Department of Science, Innovation, Technology, is very closely integrated in those. And it's really difficult because if you think about what life, if you think it was only, 2 years ago, 3 years ago that ChatGPT became mainstream. Before that, I mean, it was at a heartbeat before ChatGPT was just a source of ridicule and jokes. And then suddenly overnight, people sort of caught a glimpse of its possibilities. So to have a whole education system that can then pivot to the potential and the possibilities and the possible directions of travel is really hard. But the fundamentals still are the same. You're going to need kids with technical knowledge, with technical abilities, and you're also crucially going to have the social skills to go with it. That hasn't changed. And layering on top of that is understanding how the technology works in the first place. Because when it comes to coding, you're still going to need some of those core coding attributes. But we're already in a world where agentic AI is doing programming itself. The ChatGPT 4.0 used 100,000 programming agents alongside their human agents, their human engineers. So already we're seeing that being used. So we're in the point now where you're going to be able to use just normal human language, asking AI to start designing web pages, designing apps for you. And the amazing thing about that is that you're going to have people who have these great ideas, who have creative approaches, but don't have the programming skills. So we're going to see some incredible innovations because some of the barriers to producing technology are going to be eliminated. And I think it's going to throw open a world of apps, products, services to people from backgrounds that have been shut out of tech for too long. But your fundamental question is one that we're trying to grapple with as we reform and refocus the education system. But I'm not going to kid you that we can solve this very, very quickly and solve it in a way that the whole country can adapt really quickly to the challenges. But we are doing the spade work for it very early on.
I was going to ask that question actually. Do you have a sense of how quick that transformation might come about?
It's education, and it should literally be iterative. I mean, it really frustrates me that we have this sort of review of skills in the past every sort of decade or 20 years. This now needs to happen iteratively going forward, and we need to find a way for which frontline teaching can be connected to two things: national and global trends in technological advancement, because it's going to be so crucial to the driving forces of the economy, but also the local economy. And it's always been a source of frustration to me that schools have no idea what the jobs trends are for the 5 square miles around the actual school itself. And we have all this data, we've had it for decades, it's just not been used and made available to schools. So you don't know over the last decade where the jobs growth is, where the jobs decline is, and you're the school that's preparing kids for life in the economy. And a lot of kids will want to stay in their local economy. And we don't do even those sorts of basics. So look, if you just take a step back and look at the way the globe is going at the moment, the highest growth sectors in the world right now in the global economy are AI, automation and drones, health technology, climate technology, and then underneath this, coming down the path, are critical technologies like quantum and fusion. And AI is going to get to the point where we have artificial general intelligence, not entirely different timelines to when quantum computing is going to start taking big leaps forward. The world is going to absolutely change. And we really need to have young people coming into the economy able to thrive in that economy and we need them for their own benefit to explore their own potential. But this isn't just about economic benefit for individuals and communities in the country. It is also societal. And it is also, do we want to be a country that wants to buy off the shelf from other countries forever and a day? Or do we want to be producing this within Britain and being at the cutting edge of it, so therefore the wealth and the intellectual property and all the rest of it stays here? But don't underplay also the thing that we never talk about really in forums like that, and that is the national security and the defence aspects of these technologies that are coming. And I want to make sure that in the new world that our country is safe and secure going forward. So all these things are so linked because all of these technologies are general purpose technologies. They're not singular technologies, which is exciting and presents us with real technical and moral and ethical challenges.
Yeah, and I know.
Yeah, you're obviously very passionate about this entire subject, Peter. So that is music to our ears. There were a lot of questions earlier about education, etc. So thank you for that. I'm going to have to press because of time. So Rose, would you like to ask you a question?
I'm going to go to another audience question. So this is David Fellows. Is David here? Yes.
Hi, David.
Wonderful. Hi, David. So what David was asking is this. Given that AI is central to the UK government's plans for growth and public service reform, could you give us some concrete examples of what the public might start to see in things like health, transport, local services?
Yeah. Oh, God, it's so difficult being really tight and big because you're talking general purpose and you just named like 3 sectors that it's going to totally disrupt and transform. So just in 2 things, I'll mention people and I'll mention the government itself, central government itself. So in central government itself, we have identified, when I came in, I commissioned 3 reports. One was an action plan, 2 were reform reports. One of the reform reports was called the State of Digital Report. It was an assessment of every government department and the digital capacity within each government department. And then we put that against what the needs are. I tell you, for government report, it's a real page turner if you have an interest in this sort of stuff, because every page is it's very readable and you can really grasp what it's saying. And about 50% of all government transactions are analog. So that is DVLA opening 45,000 envelopes every day. This is HMRC answering the phone 100,000 times every day. And don't even get me started on NHS and experience these things. So we will systematically understand these opportunities we have for transforming, because I get asked, you've probably heard, whenever I do interviews, I get asked, am I trying to do an Elon Musk and are we doing a Doge and the like? Well, the first thing is we've been doing this for 6 months before they came on the scene. The second thing is I believe that when you look at what Dominic Cummings was trying to do, when you look at what Elon Musk and Trump is trying to do, there's lots of people who want to transform government, but we are a Labour government, and we can do this in a way that has progressive values built into it. That means that we can take workforces with us on this journey. We can prepare workforces and we can lead workforces through the transition to digital. We want to create, yes, a much smarter and a smaller state that's fit for the tasks that are put before it, but to do so in a way that creates better working environment, a better remunerated, rewarding working environment, and where there is displacement, we are prepared for it. So I've already, before I started this work, I've set up an apprenticeship scheme within the NHS, within the civil service, because by 2030 I've set the target that 1 in 10 jobs within the civil service will be digitally related. So they must be digitally enabled jobs. But that transition needs to start, and the pathway to it needs to be understood. So anyone inside inside the civil service or externally can apply for this apprenticeship route to transition jobs ahead. We've created a suite of productivity tools, which are collectively called Humphrey, but it includes Red Box, which is analytical tools. We have Consult, which is public consultation. Sometimes you get 50, 60,000 responses to public consultations. The AI tool that we've developed in-house is far more efficient and, interestingly, gives far more representation to voices from disadvantaged backgrounds and backgrounds that are usually excluded from consultations. Actually, there's less bias in it than with humans in the piloting that we've done already. And it does a consultation analysis 400 times quicker and 16 times cheaper than doing it just with humans. So we've got a whole suite of tools. The second thing is, and also that collective, that State of Digital report identified £45 billion worth of efficiency savings and cost savings simply from using currently available technology. And if that's there on the table, your taxpayers, if that's on the table and it can lead to a better outcome and a better working environment, you can't just look the other way. The second thing is about citizens, because citizens have to be brought on this journey. So when I came in the first week of the Secretary of State, I started asking about why we don't have a government app. And the previous government had not mentioned it once. There was no legacy work on this. We have Government UK, which has pretty ubiquitous recognition and use in the public, but no app. So next month, it's amazing I can say that now, next month the Gov.uk app will land. Very shortly afterwards, it will have an AI-powered chatbot integrated into the app, and you can talk from local services through to national services. You can ask it questions in human form about, I've been made redundant, or I want to set a business up, or I've got a parking fine here, and what do I do? Where do I go? And it will just give you information, analysis, and links, and it will assist you in getting all the answers from 700,000 pages of government websites, and it's amazing. After that, we'll have the wallet, digital wallet will be added to the app. By the end of this year, we'll have the digital driving license with all of its full age verification ID card functions. Not one bit of that had started before the election in July last year. Why is it so important to me? For two reasons. We need to empower citizens. It's their state. Citizens' services need to wrap around people, not as it is currently with people wrapping around all these individual services. This is progressive. People on lower incomes have to report to the state and interact with different government departments far more than people from wealthier backgrounds. So they spend so much time doing it. It will be liberating in order to do things in a way that resemble the way you do banking, travel, and commerce. And secondly, it connects people to the reforms themselves. We're using data in much more strident ways than before, with safety as the first step always. But you need to feel connected to it. You can't just have me saying I'm saving you money in government and I'm going to be using data and I'm going to be using algorithms and AI, trust me. But if this is all in your hands and you are getting analysis and power to do things and interact with the state and get information that empowers you, then you will feel connected to the reforms that we're doing. And that's just incredibly important to me. And three, this is about saving the welfare state, because there's always two risks. There is the risk we get something wrong. And with everything I've just said, you can all imagine, the consequences and what getting it wrong looks like. There is also a risk of not doing any of this stuff. And the way that you interact with all these other services in your life, and when you interact with the government, gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then suddenly you'll stand up with a populist in our politics, which we have lots of these days, and they'll say, the welfare state, it's an analog system in a digital age. I've got a better idea. And how do I come back and say it's justifiable? So that is the risk of not doing anything. And I choose not to counter that risk, but to try and tackle the risks involved in actually modernizing the state.
Excellent.
I promise I'll be quicker. I promise I'll be quicker.
No, it's absolutely wonderful. We're going to hand over now to the next part, which is our innovation and commercialization. But very inspiring to hear from Peter about the importance of getting involved in the narrative, taking advantage of these tools, and not just sitting back and being.
How are you?
Hi, I'm good.
Peter, hi. You're right. Yeah, very good. Can I just say about what I did today? I was invited to the Victory in Europe service, And I've had the strange experience of sitting this side of the nave and the other side was the king. And at the end of it, we sang the national anthem. And when I was standing up, I was singing the national anthem facing the king. And so, of course, I was bellowing it out. And he was just sitting there, just staring at me. And it was literally one of those one of the many out-of-body experiences I have in this job. Anyway, how was your day? Okay.
Right.
So this is a local question. To encourage AI adoption and grow local skills, do you think there are benefits to local or regional approaches in the way we implement regulation? So AI adoption benefits communities as well as businesses.
Wow. So I've resisted. So when it comes to regulation, lots of territories and countries are taking very different approaches. And I haven't legislated directly on the nose for AI yet. It's evolving very, very fast. And we have to have pacey innovation here. What I have done is tasked every single regulator in the UK to do an assessment of how AI will impact the sectors that they regulate and come back with proposals for what they assess the impact will be and how they will respond to it. And most times you don't need legislation for it. I will legislate at some point, but at this point, I'm just trying to see the pace of change. What probably does need regulating is some of the frontier aspects, which are much more national security related. So there is a lot of freedom to interpret AI and use and harness AI in very local ways. And that's one of the things that's exhilarating about it. And it's not for me to say what that should be, because I don't have the creativity and imagination. If I did, that, I would be here doing it. I wouldn't be, doing the job I do now. And my job is to enable as much creative use of this technology as I possibly can in as flexible a way as we possibly can. When it comes to the ethics and morals of this, I took a decision in opposition that when you're looking at life sciences, where we're doing a lot of work on biological technology, as well as in the pure critical technology and AI, a lot of this stuff is very morally challenging. But I tell you this, I would rather morally challenging work is happening in this country with a mature regulatory and legislative framework, and I would say a Labour government, to give oversight of it and to steer it and to be there being an assertive partner on behalf of a hungry for adoption, but also concerned that we get the basics right on this and safety built in at the start, population, than the alternatives. And there's a lot of alternatives out there that we should be concerned about, which is why getting there first is important. And I'm afraid that when I say this, it sometimes grates with people, but we do need to stay at the very cutting edge of this technology so that we can shape it and make sure it is broadly in line with our democratic values as a country.
Peter, is that working? Yes. I'm going to ask you a question that was actually posed by Alexandra Diaz. Is Alexandra here this evening? Not actually. Oh, there she is. Excellent. So the specific question here is around how regions like ours in Brighton and Hove can, what are the strategies that we can take, and how can you help us to develop stronger innovation ecosystems around AI and around other technologies that are connecting universities, startups, investors, industry partners, etc., in order to build economic power and innovation capability in our community?
Is it Alexandra? Is that, did I hear right? Yes. Well, the first thing you shouldn't be doing is asking a politician like how to sort of get these things right, because all we do is slow things down. But I kind of aspire to sort of, in a utopian way, to be an assertive partner to innovators, investors, and entrepreneurs who all come together. Every time I go around the country in opposition, I was everywhere listening, and you always meet these partnerships. And I would always say to people, this partnership's amazing, and you've got some of university labs that's coming out really excited. You've got an investor and all this. And I said, what about government? And then there's always an awkward silence, and people sort of look up and look down, and they shuffle. And And then they come up with regulatory problems or planning problems. They come up with funding problems. The funding problems are always, the grant is only 1 year or 3 years and not long enough. The process to get it was just a nightmare. And you just come away feeling shame because you just think, there's all these exciting things happening out there. And why is government a really important sector, but it's not an enabling one? It's not an exciting one. It's not one that people think, great, let's get them on board so we can really sort of do stuff. But we have to be that in some areas. So we've changed the culture a lot in some of the areas. You've got Jess here from the council, who I know is trying really hard to change the sort of the culture locally, bearing in mind we've had 50% cuts to our budget locally, which makes these sorts of things really, really difficult. But Brighton is Brighton. I grew up in Bognor Regis along the coast. And Brighton is Brighton, not Bognor Regis, because of our 2 universities. And we should never forget that, about just how much the universities have shaped the culture and the social aspects of our city and given it a very, very unique economy, which really is gold dust when it comes to coastal communities like ours. And so if I was setting up a business locally and it was innovation, I would be straight in touch with one of the universities. I would be there trying to get to know some of the students and some of the professors and some of the work that they're doing, particularly some of the research side and the research students. And I would be really, because there is so much going on. When you go to America, I was in America week before last, and I know it's Stanford and I know it's sort of an outlier, but when I said, when I said to a group of students, why did you want to come why did you want to go to university? About 90% of them put their hands up and said, because I want to start a business. And that's really, striking. And it doesn't mean they don't want knowledge and they don't want to learn. It doesn't mean they want all the things that everyone goes to university for, but they had thought what they wanted to use that knowledge and the experience for. And they were hungry to get out there and start building things and being a leader in building and doing things. We have quite a bit of that here in Brighton and Hove. We could really do with a lot of it, and we could do with a lot of it around the country because it is exciting. We should celebrate it.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We're going to keep this moving fast. So I'm now going to invite another 2 people.
Oh, wow. I feel bad that people can't ask. Was it... I feel bad that people can't shout questions out. Was it sanitized for my? Okay. Oh, okay. All right. Good. Yeah,
you're not getting off the way that lightly, please.
No. Okay. Good.
So on the sofa, I'm very pleased to be sitting down. I've got to say, resting my feet. So Adebisi, over to you. If you'd like to answer your question, Peter.
Well, it's from Damilola Jiboye. Damilola, are you here? There he is. Right. So his question is, what policy frameworks do you believe are most urgent to ensure AI is developed and used responsibly in the UK?
God, you're asking really like nerdy, good questions here, aren't you? It's like, so I would say the AI Opportunities Action Plan is something that I'm unbelievably proud of. And it's one of these things where you just think, I mean, you might think, what's the point of going into public life? I used to run a charity before I came into this. The party, they offered me to stand when I was 35. And I said no, because I didn't think I was ready. It was a bolt out of the blue and I just knew that it wasn't right for me. And then when I did think I had more the skills and I knew who I was, then the party said, you should stand. And I said, I'm going to stand in Hove. And they said, no, you shouldn't stand in Hove because you'll lose it because there's a Tory seat. You should go and stand somewhere else. And they suggested somewhere. And I just said, I just want to stand here. And if I don't win, I'm going to get on with my life. And anyway, did get selected, did win the seat. The seat that they suggested I go to is currently a Tory seat. But that's just the way these things go. And there's a big life lesson in there. But one of the thing about politics is, and the thing that is magical about it, is that in opposition, there's a few things that we thought about, I thought about, and you just think, why don't we do this? So we're looking at sort of regulatory reform, and we wanted to set this regulatory unit up, and that's now in my department, and it's just it's getting innovation straight out into the economy really quickly. The other thing is the AI Opportunities Action Plan, because we just realized our digital infrastructure as a country is way behind. So I got in touch with Matt Clifford, who was Rishi Sunak's AI ambassador, and we started speaking really intensely. And because of that, we now have AI growth zones that are now out for communities to participate, to express interest in. And we've had 211 communities ask to have data centers and digital infrastructure in their communities. And Jess was talking about what the potential is of heating and all the clustering that can go with it. I expected a couple of dozen. And the great thing is I can now go out and say, not only the Prime Minister and myself are really excited about AI, the whole country is hungry for it. And I don't know of any data center that's won an architectural award or anything. So to have these 211 communities bidding for it. So the answer to you is the action plan, because we've got AI growth zones. We've got the AI Energy Council. So now AI sector is now sitting, which is co-chaired with me and Ed Miliband. We have the AI industry and the people who are running our national grid. They're regulating Ofgem and the big producers of energy for the country. We all sit together and we strategically plan. So in the short term, AI growth zones, medium to long term, the AI Energy Council, a sovereign unit in number 10 that is bringing together all the constituent parts that spark off really high-end frontier development of AI technology. Everything Silicon Valley has, we have in Britain. We just don't have it in a coordinated, intense way. The magic comes from everything rubbing up together in this virtuous sort of circle over there. So we've got a sovereign unit that's trying to bring these parts together. And then we have this whole raft of things. And that's something that I'm really proud of. The reason I mentioned my own journey is because I just came up with this idea. And I was actually on the train between campaign stops when we came up with this idea. And now that idea is going to fundamentally transform the infrastructure of our country. And if we get it right, then the next 2 generations is going to be able to build on top of the firmest foundations. We've also upgraded digital infrastructure to that of critical national infrastructure. So I have additional powers to make sure we have robust networks to build on. I'm building in cybersecurity bills so that we can make sure our country is where it should be, because in the first day in this job, I was given a briefing that scared the pants off me. And immediately on the first day, asked for a piece of legislation on it, which is now coming into Parliament. These are things you can do because we won the election, but also because people stood for election. And so that's my plea to many of you who are there fizzing with ideas. There is nothing like coming into government and actually implementing and designing and doing. So that's the thing that I'm most proud of.
Very good. Thank you, Peter. A nice recruitment pitch at the end there. Love it.
You're all going to stand in Hove against me now. Now I'm going to get talked down.
So I've got hopefully a slightly less nerdy question for you. It's up on the screen there. AI has proven to be an extreme power, and the evolution of AI is happening so rapidly that I don't think we're really ready for the society and cultural changes that we're seeing. Plus, it's a very extractive technology, so rare minerals, energy, water for cooling, etc. Are we on a knife edge? Are we going to end up with a dystopian future or a utopian future? What's your view?
Okay. The thing that's always frustrates me about the conversation that has this as its premise is it kind of gives the assumption that we're bystanders. And part of the reason why people like me and I personally got into government and strove so hard to get into government is I believe you have agency when you get into government. We do have the power as a community, a society, and a state to shape how this technology is used and implemented, deployed, and consumed. We cannot stop the progress of AI. Most of it is happening in other territories. I can't stop it coming into our country, which is what some people think I can do, but I can't. But what we can do is shape how it is developed and designed, if we can get and keep our skills up there at the front. And I can also use the power of government to shape where the infrastructure is going to go, so that those communities who have been left behind in previous waves of industrial disruption and change and revolution will be the first to benefit this time. And I hope you will notice and keep an eye on where you start, when we start to reveal in the coming days and weeks where some of the infrastructure is going to go. And you'll see that it is not an accident that we are using all of the power. My doctorate at Sussex University was in community development. And now I'm in this position where you can really use that experience to try and look at parts of the country. And then I have the pleasure of meeting some of the biggest global investors, not just in the world, but of a size that the world has never seen before, and going up and talking to them about parts of our country that have probably never been spoken to in those circles before, offering to take them directly to these communities, to show communities that are hungry for investment, that have got great skills, but just need a break. And we're determined to do so. So that's from the infrastructure. In terms of where it goes afterwards, you're absolutely right. But here's the thing, I don't know for sure, and nor does anybody else. And again, I've had the privilege in this job of meeting the people who are actually designing this technology. And some of the iconic figures that we all know the names of, I've had the chance to sit and ask them. And none of them can really tell you with certainty where their models are going to be, precisely what their models are going to be capable of 3 months, beyond 3 months into the future. And that's exciting, but it is also cause for anxiety. But also just have caution, because when you have a general purpose technology, when the compute power is increasing so fast, where the creativity of programmers and now AI programmers is just increasing enormously, and the creativity that's going into this is just next level. So any of us can posit a quite outlandish destination and plot quite a credible path towards it. So yes, there is a credible path towards AI being embedded in robots, them coming on their own to solve the energy crisis, so there's no on-off button that we can flick, and then suddenly they turn on us. Now, there is actually a credible pathway to describing how that could be possible. There's also one that says that, as Demis Hassablis, Britain's leading technologist who just won the Nobel Prize for Chemistry and is chief executive of Google DeepMind and co-founder, he says within 10 years we could solve and cure most diseases that affect humans. And then that technology being used to create jobs and wealth, products, and so forth. So, there is all these different, very credible pathways. The time it gets really difficult is when somebody like Elon Musk says it, because he's somebody who said, 15 years ago that he'd put, that he'd send rockets into space, and everyone laughed, and he's done it. And he's revolutionized electric transport for cars. So because he does the unthinkable, when he says something, it kind of has a sort of veneer of credibility that others don't. But actually, any of us can plot these paths. But one thing I know for sure, I'm severely dyslexic. I'm profoundly dyslexic. I still, to this day, have a reading age of an 8-year-old. And when I see how AI is being used for teaching and learning, it is incredible. And again, because we are a progressive government, we are determined that technology soon will be in classrooms, it will be in workplaces, it'll be in all sectors, solving problems, because the energy challenges are also, the solution to them is also AI. That's the irony. And better distribution, better consumption, better household understanding of energy, all these things. But then for individual learning, you will have kids with barriers to learning that will have a sort of an AI agent that will understand your learning characteristics, that will help you learn in a way that's right for you in a classroom with a great teacher and hopefully teaching assistant as well. And in the same classroom, you'll have a kid with a particular talent in a particular setting, and that talent can be absolutely, turbocharged, and they can all be learning in the same classroom. And that is the kind of place I really, really want to be living in. That's the kind of environment I would have loved to have experienced as a child myself. And that's one that we can deliver. We can deliver it because we choose to deliver it. So let's just find out what it is we choose and aspire to deliver with this new technology and set about doing it, rather than sitting back and worrying about how the outcomes could happen if we're all just buffeted around by it.
Thank you, Peter. So now they get to have a go.
Oh, okay, good. Very good.
So you can either
That's a
post
very
the
old
question
photo.
up. So question number one we've got, how can we align AI development with the goals of reaching net zero? Whose question was that, out of interest? Jeff, at the back there, please.
Well, it's quite straightforward in that in the production and distribution of electricity in our country, the grid, we're already starting to look at how we can integrate AI into that distribution. It's going to solve enormous amounts of problems. It'll be very soon when households start having AI integrated into household consumption, which aggregate around the whole country will have a big impact in terms of heating, lighting, and consumption of energy. But also some of the real fundamentals, because there is still about distribution of electricity on the grid, there's huge inefficiencies in it. And Ofgem and the national grid itself is now being able to expedite research into the efficient transportation of electricity in ways that it was unimaginable. So they're reducing the pipeline for innovation in net zero technology from like 20 years is coming down by, you know, a factor of 5. You know, we're talking about things just happening incredibly fast. So right, because it's general purpose, it's going to be right across the board. But many of the problems thrown up by AI are also going to be solved by AI. And that's the counterintuitive bit of it. The second counterintuitive bit is how human AI is. And when people who have sort of avoided what they believe is interactions with AI, when they do it, there's some very human aspects to it. So, for example, we've got a lot of call centers in government. Again, we're a progressive government. We have choices. So when AI agents start taking over and start interacting directly with patients and public service users, we can then choose to use some of that human capacity to be proactive. So those people who are digitally excluded and aren't using the technology, we can now use data efficiently and effectively, see who's missing out. And rather than just having an overstretched call center, we can have an underused call center proactively connecting with humans who are excluded from it. And these are the things that you can do to deliver a more human experience because of AI. And the counterintuitive aspect of when it comes to energy and climate change is that many of the challenges thrown up by what is currently an additional need for electricity is going to be solved into the long term. I'm quite optimistic about that, although I'm not ignorant to the real medium-term challenges we have with enough production to cope with the demands it's going to have.
Thank you, Peter. We have a question about visas from a young gentleman over here.
Oh, hi. I can hear you.
Thank you for your talk, Peter. I'm from the University of Sussex. Unfortunately, a lot of students are having to leave the country because of visa requirements set by the previous government. This means that for our country to be leading in AI, that we're not getting any talent from the world. And the current government can go back on the Tory policy and invest a bit more in people that work more on their actual work than wage.
What are you studying?
I'm doing my PhD in artificial intelligence.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. And I think the Artificial Intelligence Unit at Sussex University was started in 1964 or 65, the year the university was founded. It's one of the oldest research labs into AI. It's amazing we've got this here in our community. So the day this government was elected, in July 4th last year, the war on universities ended. And that war by the Tories was multifaceted. It came from lots of different angles. It came from funding directly. It came from the way that the science budget was, the research and development budget was used. And it came also from visas and tuition fees, you know, a whole set of circumstances. And then, of course, the language. I can't tell you how personally I took it when I saw Rishi Sunak as Prime Minister standing up talking about Mickey Mouse courses. Within 2 months of him saying that, applications to universities in the UK from overseas students had fallen by 10%. You know, you talk down your universities, that's what happens. Why would that be a surprise? And, you know, so we've had all of these issues. Now, any of you can ask about any aspect of public services and have the same kind of thing, because we've inherited a really difficult set of circumstances. I can't give you any details right now because in a very short space of time, the Home Secretary is going to announce a migration policy and a comprehensive migration white paper. The country expects us to be open and welcoming for talented people from around the world, and we are. The problem is the migration debate has got very confused and integrated. So when you see, asylum, you see visas and legal routes into the country, you see tourism into the country, and you see the small boats crossings in the channel. In lots of the public debate, they're all just merged into one, which makes it very difficult to sort of have debates sort of that are rational debates about what is an extremely challenging period. And bear in mind that the last year we were in the EU, net migration to the UK was 250,000. The last year of the Tory government, it was 1 million. And of course, they ran every election since 2010 on, including 2010, on migration. So we're in a really bad place on this, and we've got to get a grip on it. But you can't have people who are talented, particularly in a world where there's lots of pushes from lots of countries at the moment when it comes to talented people who want to study. We need to be the best place and the only place to come and study. We are very aware of this, and I can't say any more until the white paper comes out, which is the frustration of the world I live in at the moment. But you're welcome to come and nag me, and when that comes out, if you have any concerns on the back of it. But you will not have a more strident advocate for universities and what they deliver for our country than me.
Excellent question. Peter, so how can we use AI to help protect and enhance our natural world? Dean, where's Dean?
Hi. Yeah, I mean, it's not dissimilar to the sort of previous question in that AI is just being applied in so many different ways, and it just blows my mind. My job, it's weird because one of the things you notice really quickly when you get appointed, I've only had one elected job in government, and that's as a Secretary of State, which is the most amazing thing. It's a very steep learning curve, but you immediately feel very, very distant from frontline things happening, and it takes quite a lot before people come to get to see me. And the decisions I'm making are, I've got lots of other ministers in the department who will take care of a lot of decisions. So the decisions I get to take are very pointed, and they are at the very, very top. Sort of, I set the strategic direction, and there's a few things that I lead very assertively. But one thing I am doing is working now with every government department about how AI is being implemented and used. And the Prime Minister wanted an update on this, and we spent 2 hours on Friday running through. And then we requested from every government department as part of the spending review process, which is an incentive, what they are doing to harness AI within the department. And it was an interesting process, and it's now gone back out to them for an update because each government department has got to up their ambitions a bit more. And now the Prime Minister has asked for a weekly update. And I tell you, there's not many things the Prime Minister gets on a weekly basis. But this, he does. He wants to know what each government department is doing to harness AI and use it wisely and safely, but assertively to tackle the challenges that our climate, our economy, and our society faces. And Steve Reed at DEFRA is grabbing it with both hands. Shabana Mahmood in Justice is looking really creatively at how tech can play a much greater role in helping people who have made the wrong choices in life start to get the support and the encouragement they need through technology to start making the right ones. And I think all of these sorts of things are the kind of things that we as a society would aspire to, and technology can enable in a much better way. Sorry, I can't say anything more specifically about rivers. All right, thank you.
We had a question also about regenerative agriculture and where AI sits in that sector.
You can probably give a better answer than me.
Well, just before I jump into it, I just introduce myself quickly. I'm Sean Ring. PhD student at the University of Sussex, and we were talking about Stanford University. It's a little bit ironic, but just started a startup myself, which is an AI toolbox.
Excellent. Excellent.
But it's, yeah, social media map. My question was, so how is the government sort of looking into, and is there any plans to look into technology to help with sort of farming, agriculture, and especially regenerative agriculture?
What do you mean by regenerative agriculture?
So sort
God,
of,
you're doing a PhD in it.
No. I mean,
Yeah.
NLP, this is just some of it. So it's kind of sustainable agriculture,
Okay.
I'd say.
Well, as you can tell by my curiosity, I don't know the answer to this question. I'm sorry, I just don't know the answer to this question. But if by me not knowing the answer to that question, you're not going to get your PhD because you're counting on that to be the final chapter. No, I don't. I'm afraid. But look, I'm happy to look into it for you, and I'm happy to try and find out what. But I don't know precisely. I'm afraid. Sorry. I'm racking my brains for how I can get the answer to you.
Actually,
these people sitting in the front row are wearing ties, everyone, and I don't know whether you got the dress code or not. But you're not actually from Hove, are you?
Yeah, no, I did.
Oh, you are. Every other MP takes the mickey out of me for the way I dress. I just say you just got to come to Hove and see it for yourself.
No, I was actually just going to say if
Okay.
anyone wants to talk to me about startup or that,
Okay.
I'm here. Please, please do.
That's great. That's great.
We have a question here. We have a huge skills gap in AI, specifically for women over 55 and those from disadvantaged backgrounds. How do we close the gap, Peter?
You work assertively to do so. I've noticed in the tech sector, I applied to university 4 times before I got in, and I went back to secondary school when I was 25 and spent a year in a classroom with 16-year-olds, which could have been very humiliating, but it wasn't humiliating because I knew why I was doing it. And then I came out of having gone through that, got the qualifications that Sussex University asked for, and they rejected me again. And I got into university because Anita Roddick, who co-founded The Body Shop, rang Sussex University and said, if you don't have Peter Kyle as a student, I'm returning my honorary doctorate. And the next day I was accepted as a student. And that's how I got into university. And when I got into university, this whole world just opened up, and I felt the sheer exhilaration of, I just felt, you felt growth, and I felt excitement. And I used to go to all these lectures I wasn't on the courses for, and hopping into seminars and things that I wasn't on the courses for. And I just loved it so much. But then I immediately became very aware that the system, nobody, my accent, and now I'm an MP and I'm a Secretary of State and I've got a doctorate, everyone just makes assumptions. But none of those assumptions would recognize, actually how many challenges I had and had to overcome. And I just became so aware at university that, my God, the system was so good at just diverting me off. Nobody sat there and said, Peter Kyle from that background, Dad left school at 14, went to the Navy at 16. He's not for university. Nobody said that. But the system was so clever at just sort of trying to push me and shunt me in a different direction. And now the more I get to know the tech sector, the more I see a similar kind of thing there. Every tech company takes actually very seriously diversity. They have to, because they understand that actually a lot of them have very poor diversity in almost every area, but particularly in socioeconomic background. And I've spoken to them about this a lot. Women and people from working class backgrounds actually really struggle to get in and thrive in the tech sector. So we, firstly, recognizing the problem. Secondly, using government and what the avenues we have as effectively we can. And I've already spoken about that. We also have to work a lot with businesses and current employers, because workplaces are going to change so fast. And we need to have employers that are constantly updating skills. And ironically, AI is going to play a big part in this. It won't be long before parents are much more informed about the kids' education, because the kids' education has been a lot more assisted by technology. That means that hopefully one day by the government app, you'll be able to get a push notification or a request or some information about, it'd be good if you read this with your kid tonight, or it'd be good if you did this, use these words with your child tonight, or just something that's developmental that you could incorporate into family life that complements what's happening at school, or vice versa. You can update. So all these sorts of things can happen, but workplaces should also be iteratively adapting and updating and helping people keep up to speed with the skills that they need. And if we get technology right, we can be doing that. I really worry that certain groups will be left behind, but the fact that I'm in the position I'm in now and I'm worrying about this and the conversations are happening, we are thinking very deeply about the impact that AI is going to have on workplaces, on communities of people. And the more we can start to predict, the more that we can be aware of, then the more we have of moving together as one country and making sure that nobody gets left behind. We're not going to get everything right, but we will care about areas we get wrong and work really, really hard and fast to adapt. You're loitering, I can feel you.
We had a question about mental health from a young lady over near the window. Martin, can you take the mic? Saw some other hands go up as well.
Yes, hi. My question was really around about the emergence of mental health and technology over the last few years, and how we could use AI to be a positive in that, to ensure that the technology that has been developed over the last few years, like well, more than a few years, like TikTok and Facebook, that is very much consuming and is detrimental to that health, how AI can be used to design technology to counter effect that.
Yeah, it's so your question is brilliant, because it probably for the first time I've had a question asked in this way that integrates social media and AI in one, and actually the two have now converged. So you have very clever use of data, algorithms, and AI, and then put into people's feeds, and it is addictive. So the first thing is, I've had a real frustration, and I've been a bit clobbered in the media over this, which is frustrating for me. I don't mind it being clobbered in the media, as long as they're doing things I know I need to do better at. But when we came in to the Act hadn't been implemented yet, and if I had stood up publicly, I want to do these things, then the regulators would have stopped implementing the powers that were coming online. So I've had to be quite quiet about what my next sort of direction of travel is. But in January this year, all online platforms are required by law to take down illegal content. By July this year, all online platforms and content providers have to provide age-appropriate material to children, to young people. And this is going to be a massive step forward, and it will change the experience that children have, and parents will, for the first time, notice a positive difference. It will not solve, it will be a step forward. I'm now looking very carefully about what I'm thinking very carefully about how I can now start moving forward when these powers come online, and I can then start what would be a Labour approach. And just so you know, because it directly relates to the way you phrased the question, that the addictiveness of some of the tools is something that young people themselves say they are concerned about. And some young people, quite a lot of young people, actually report feeling annoyance and sometimes shame that they opened an app and thought they'd spend 3 or 4 minutes on it, and suddenly an hour and 10 minutes has gone by, and they feel guilty about that happening. So they need help in managing their online life, and that is something that the tech companies aren't wholly proving they are capable of doing themselves. And in those situations, it's appropriate the government steps in. So I'm thinking very carefully. But I do bloody think this, and I've said this to people at the very, very, very top of these companies that we're talking about, that I was thinking of getting a car, because I don't have a car at the moment, but I was thinking of getting one. So I looked at a couple of online things, and for about 3 months afterwards, I was bombarded in my feed with car adverts. And the thing that was amazing about it was how specific the adverts were. They were cars that I was sort of like, I kind of wanted to click on, because they were perfectly tailored to somebody of my income, of my, background. They were the kind of cars I would go for. So when I speak to some of these people and I say, you've done that for me, so surely if you've got somebody with a vulnerability, you would know that about them as well. And you would know if somebody has suicidal thoughts, tendencies, if you know that somebody is susceptible to certain negative traits because they start clicking on these things that takes them on a certain journey. So if you know that, why aren't your algorithms not just protecting them from that journey, but finding ways to positively move forward in a healthy resilience building way? And every time they come back and say, "Oh, it's really difficult, really difficult." I said, "But it's not, because you're doing it. You're doing it with me, and I feel, oh my God, I love that car. I'm going to stop it." But so surely they can do it. And then it takes me one step further. And I just say, wouldn't it be great to live in a world where algorithms are positively understanding our characteristics and helping us through life in a way that builds resilience where we have challenge or weakness or difficulties in life? And yes, when we have things that we are talented at or we enjoy and actually bring happiness into our life, that's the way that we are incentivized to spend more time in, and they find a way to commercialize that. Well, anyway, I can't deliver that within 1 year of a Labour government, but that is what, those are the sorts of things that I'm very keen to mitigate. And if the companies themselves can't and won't, then I think there are certainly solid steps forward that will make children's life a lot more healthy in the digital age, and will help families and parents set boundaries in the digital age in the way that parents are very used to in an analog age. And if you bear in mind that somebody who's 18 years old today was born the year the iPhone was released, so an 18-year-old's never known a life that's not smartphone enabled. And that means, therefore, that parents today will have known through the way they were parented about setting boundaries in the physical world, so curfews and social networks and food and TV time, all the sort of stuff physically they have control over, but not a single parent really, realistically, not parents per se today, would have had no lived experience of being parented about online boundaries and online life. And that's why it's so incredibly difficult, even though I'm not a parent. It's so difficult because there's no inherited learning about how to parent in the digital age. And so I understand these issues, and I'm just trying to find a way forward where government can be a helpful partner, but not just get too intrusive into family life. So I spoke too long then, sorry.
No. Thank you very much. Peter, magnificent. I'm going to shake your hand. Fantastic. I think a huge round of applause. And as I said before Peter arrived, our mission at Brighton AI is to educate, to inform and inspire. Well, we don't need to, because we've had Peter do that for us tonight. It's been absolutely magnificent. You want to do a wedding photograph?
Yeah. One more question.
Oh,
Peter.
Okay.
Can you come back and do more, please?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Yeah. That's the date, right? You're back. Thank you. Really appreciate your time. Thanks, audience, for all your contributions. We know we need to let you go for another event. If you wouldn't mind just taking a couple of photos, going to have an audience selfie as well, if you wouldn't mind, and then we'll let you go to your next appointment. Thank you very much. Round of applause again, please, for Peter.
Right?
Yeah, on the front.
No,
And where's
Brighton AI first?
Have a family shot.
Family shot. There you go. There you go. Pilar's going to do the shot for us. Thanks, Pilar. And now the selfie.
Us with our backs to the audience, and everyone should be in the shot. If everyone's kind of stands up, makes a pose, we're trying to get a group photo of everybody. Yes, yeah.
We got everybody? Careful, Pilar.
We put the screen up as well. We don't need the screen for a second, if that's possible. AV team.
Cameron, can we get the screen up? The screen up. There we go. Be careful, Peter.
Turn the screen off as well. It's going to reflect in the photo.
3, 2, 1, smile. And again, a few more crazy poses. We'll see. Yeah, I know. I know. It's Brighton. There we go. Peter, thanks very much. I know you need to go.
Well done.
Mate, brilliant. Yeah. Well, good chat, mate.
About the bar?
Yes, we need the screen down again. I did
Just say
he's turned my mic off.
Here we go. Pictures.
Hello, hello.
Pass you on the head.
Ladies and gentlemen, just to let you know, our sponsors have put money behind the bar, so you're all very welcome to have a drink and carry on networking when Peter leaves. Free bar. Free bar. All right, buddy.
Hold it off.
Yeah, we're just about there, aren't we?
Keep filling.
Yeah. God, man, isn't it? Oh, we're back down again.